Good. Good afternoon, everyone. Lots of seats, so everybody take a spot. How's it going?
Is this not?
If I haven't had the chance to meet you personally yet, then you haven't been at the bar, so there's
Is
that.
it okay if we don't do tape? Just 'cause
I'm
it's,
Anu. I'm the
photos?
Chief Operating Officer of Expensify, and I'm here today to talk to you about the Expensify Card. We actually launched the card in February of 2020, probably weeks before the entire world went into a total shutdown. So generally challenging conditions for most products, but for a corporate card, probably the worst of conditions. So we really didn't give it much of a, coming out party. So now that we're all here and it's so beautiful and sunny, I figured we would give it its fair due. So why did we build a card? Of course, we love revenue. We love making more money, but we really built it because when you use the card with the Expensify subscription, is when you get really the best bang for your Expensify bucks, if you will. And we want to deliver to you the most smooth, seamless experience such that you can spend less time doing the things that you need to do that are manual and cumbersome, and more time just, having fun and closing the books on time. So I want to go into a little more detail on exactly why we built it and sort of walk through the various value propositions with you. There we go. A little technical difficulty. So here are some of the reasons we built the card. We want to really make your client's cash flow. We want you to stop having to nag employees and let us do it, or even better, just eliminate the need to nag them at all. Put appropriate spending power in employees' hands. So nobody wants to give everybody a credit card that just, they can spend at will, but you do want to put some sort of spending power in their hands depending on what they need to spend and how much the employee trusts them. So sort of fine-tune the spending power to the employee. Eliminate surprises, not just in terms of amount or type of spend, but also in terms of timing. So you always have full visibility into all the spend on a real-time basis. And then reconcile the ledger, reconcile the books in hours and not days, which I bet none of you enjoy. And taken together, just help you close your books on time, perhaps even early, if I dare suggest. So I'll sort of go into each of these and talk about the features specifically of the card and how it helps you do these things. So let's start with cash flow optimization. So upfront, there's a lot of jargon in the payments industry, right? There are debit cards, charge cards, credit cards. So what is this card? The intention behind building this card was never to extend a company's runway. We are not a credit device. We are not trying to give companies money they don't have to spend. Rather, it is a tool that helps them spend the money that they have, but sort of iron out any peaks and troughs in their cash flow. So a lot of companies work on net 30 basis. Maybe they have quarterly or annual invoicing with a lot of customers. So there's a lot of push and pull in their cash flows. It peaks, and then for a while they're waiting on money to come in. And the point of the card is really to help them smooth out that kind of chaos in their cash flow, if you will. So there's flexibility in terms of the settlement options. So like how often do you pay off the card balance? Like it's up to you and your clients. If your client is very cash rich and they're just looking to have a program that can appropriately put spending power in employees' hands and manage their books easier, but they don't need working capital optimization, then you put them on daily settlement. And why that basically settles the card balance every day. And why is that good? It just gives them access to larger limits, right? Because it's sort of going to zero every day, if you will. So that's the pro of using daily settlement if you don't need the working capital optimization feature. But if you do, then you put them on monthly, which means, of course, 30 days, one time, we settle the balance on the card, which means that we give them access to their average balance in their bank account, but we wait 30 days before we debit the bank account for that balance. So they get to sort of use this as a working capital solution. So the next topic I want to talk about is real-time notifications. And this is actually my favorite feature of the card. Now, because we own the processing on the card, when the card is swiped, we get a lot of metadata on the transaction. So we get things like, of course, merchant, date, obviously, amount, but also what type of merchant is involved. So is it a restaurant? Is it a hotel? Is it a gas station? And then also location. So it gets down to the nitty-gritty of the transaction itself. And why is this helpful? Now, one of the biggest pain points we've heard from accountants is that one of the big frustrations with closing books on time is that employees haven't actually submitted the expenses, or they still haven't really coded it properly, or they haven't attached a receipt when they need to, and you are stuck having to nag them to do their jobs on time so you can close your books on time, which I can't imagine how frustrating that is. So the way we built these real-time notifications is to take not only all that metadata that we have on the card, but to also take the company's rules, their expense policies, which are already set up on Expensify, and sort of match them up. And when I say real-time, I mean real-time. In microseconds, we get all this data, we process this against the rules engine of the policy, and then we say, okay, based on this receipt, this particular transaction, you don't need to scan a receipt, it's below the receipt threshold, but you do need to add a description, or it's a restaurant spend, so you need to add attendees. So that sort of notification is built in and shows up on the employee's phone seconds after they swipe the card. Again, why is that better? Because there's a lot of science that's gone into this, and generally it's a bad thing that apparently when you get a text message or a notification on your phone, your brain is wired to get that dopamine hit to respond to it. Generally, not good. Driving, texting, very bad. But in the case of this particular feature, it actually helps us because it encourages employees to immediately do the thing that we're asking them to do in real time. And it's so specific about what they need to do that they're just more inclined to do it. So we have a lot of data since we've launched the card, which actually shows this to be true. Employees are much more likely to complete their expense, if you will, in terms of the rules of the policy. And when they do that, we immediately submit it on their behalf to the approver. So more and more, you don't have to nag employees to submit their expenses, and they're doing it in real time. And so they're also happy that they don't have this pent-up inbox of expenses that they need to get to on a Friday when no one wants to deal with that. So a pretty great feature. We kind of stumbled into it because we had the data and we married them together, and we noticed how it actually had a lift in terms of compliance. The next feature kind of goes hand in hand with real-time notifications, really. But in any company, even the flattest, smallest of companies, not all employees are created equally in terms of how much the organization trusts them, right? So VPs, founders, executives generally need more spending power and generally are more trusted by the company. Your latest hire, engineering intern, probably not so much. So the card lets you drill down to the employee level and set a spend limit. Now, spend limits are a well-known feature on a lot of corporate cards, but our spend limits are smart limits, and they're a little bit different, and I want to explain how that works. So on most cards, you set a limit, it's a static limit. And what I mean by that is, if you have a $5,000 limit on your card, it's time-based. You hit 5,000 in that time period, which is generally a monthly limit. You hit 5,000, your card stops working. You have to wait till the end of the month or get that limit raised. Our spend limits work a little differently. And again, they're married up with the policy's rules. And what we do is we look at the amount of spend on the card you have at any given point in time that is not yet approved by your admin. And once it's approved, that amount clears up on your limit and you have back available to spend. And this is interesting for two reasons. It basically drives good behaviors on either side of the equation. And what I mean by that is, if you're the employee and you have a $5,000 limit, and say you booked a bunch of travel, say you booked it for $2,000, but you very diligently put all the receipts together, did all the description tagging thing that you needed to do, and you submitted it. And your approver actually more diligently approved it. That $2,000 frees up on your card and you have $5,000 limit back. So it encourages the employee to do their job on time, so they're never stuck with a card that's not working. And it encourages the approver also to more frequently take care of these approvals, because then they can get away with giving employees more reasonable limits and they don't need to raise them. And that just is a better control environment for the company. So everything we built around the card tries to encourage good behavior and best practices on the app. So you don't have to force anybody to do these things. They just automatically build these habits to do them. The next feature, again, like these all kind of segue between each other, but visibility in the present. So one of the biggest pain points we've heard from a lot of customers and accountants is sometimes, and particularly accountants, sometimes employees forget to not just submit the expense, but even scan the receipt and put the expense into Expensify and even have it on a policy. They wake up, say, in May and realize, shit, like here's this flight, I never really submitted this. And they do that in May for March. You've now not only closed March, you've also closed the first quarter. So now you have to open the books back up. You didn't accrue for it. It's a huge nightmare for our accountants at least. So I'm assuming this resonates with all of you. That never happens with the Expensify card, obviously, because every time someone swipes the card, like I was saying, even the transaction in a pending state is already visible to you. And once it posts, it gets put into a report, which is automatically then more visible to you because it's on the policy and is actually factored into any reporting that we provide, which is all on a part of our app called the reconciliation dashboard. So at any given point in time, you can analyze the month, you can analyze the quarter, you can see how many expenses are pending, how many have posted, how many have been settled, how many are not yet approved or submitted. Like you have all this metadata available to you at a given point in time at your fingertips. And last but not the least, reconciliations on autopilot. So most corporate cards have two sources of truth. Yeah. So first there's all the expenses that are flowing through Expensify, and then there's the actual corporate card payments that are coming in separately into the ledger. And at the end of the month, your job is to figure out what did this one payment to the card actually pay off, and has that been exported from Expensify or not? Why not? So on and so forth. There's two sources of truth, you have to marry them. When there's two sources of data, it's always an exercise in getting them to match. One of the most frustrating but also satisfying things when you get them to match. So we tried to automate all of that because we are the one source of truth on the Expensify card. So all the expenses live on Expensify, get exported as liabilities into your client's books. And all the payments, we know exactly what expenses a payment has paid off, and we export that to cancel off that liability appropriately. So at the end of the month, you are not left with anything sort of sticking out that you need to figure out where it needs to go, because we've already sort of reconciled everything for you. And if there's any discrepancy in any of that, we have people standing by with intricate access to the data that can help you troubleshoot this. So it decreases the amount of time you spend on reconciliations from days to hours. And we've actually had customers talk to us about how they had an entire person on reconciliations for the first week of the month for the card, and they've now moved them off to do other things in their accounting team. And that's always very good for us to hear. So I think those are some of the features that we have today. And I don't know if I have them in the audience. I have Air CFO in the audience. I don't know if I have Datadog and Football Co. There you go. So power users of our card, so you don't have to take it from me. Please talk to them. And any feedback you guys have in terms of features that we should build, things that are not working, we are here to sort of improve this experience, because we launched this and it's been such a chaotic time since 2020 that we've not really given it as much love as we should, and we would love to do that. Before I end and move on to questions, I want to talk about some things we are cooking on the card. Two features. One we heard a lot from the accounting community was admin-issued virtual cards, which we are in the process of building. And how this feature is going to work is if you as an admin or approver of the company has a bunch of subscription spend, say, like as an example. It's recurring spend, you know which merchant, you know how much. You put that onto a virtual card, and you don't have to give any specific employee that limit. You just give the card that limit. And if it ever goes over that limit, that card's going to get declined. So you'll immediately know if that subscription was somehow overcharged or duplicate charged. And you just leave it on autopilot, so you don't have to review it. You don't have to tag it separately because it's auto-tagged for you. Just puts a lot of recurring expenses, again, on autopilot. And then, of course, like, to the extent that you can put on these virtual cards, you don't have to give someone the limit, which they don't need, which just takes care of the control aspect of it. Second, we heard that the number one reason to pick one corporate card over the other is the limit itself and the ability to plan payments, because a lot of companies, as we said at the beginning of this thing, like, have working capital needs that fluctuate a lot. So exclusively for this community, because you bring us trusted clients, and they are generally set up with the best practices because they're working with somebody. And when someone's sort of taking their accounting and expense management process seriously, that's the kind of client we can underwrite more comfortably. We're going to extend this feature where if they want, they can plan a payment. So say there's a big invoice payment coming in, and they don't want to pay the card in full, but they want to pay it 2 months later. For a fee, we're going to let them sort of extend that payment. And that'll be an approved accounting community exclusive feature. And then, last but not the least, we already do 1 to 2% cashback on the card. And I think David teased a little bit on this value prop in his keynote. But what we want to do is extend an extra 50 basis points, again, to the accounting community. And what you do with that is optional to you. You can keep it as affiliate revenue. And to sort of put it in perspective, for every $1 million in spend that you bring to the card, in a year, you earn about $60,000 in affiliate revenue on this. So you can keep it as revenue source, or you can pass it along to your customers. So then, to put that in perspective, every $18,000 in spend gets them a paid subscription for free. So either way, it's a rich value proposition exclusive to this community again, and we want to help you onboard more customers to this. We want to make your jobs easier. We want all of your feedback to help make your jobs easier. And, we are really hoping for a rich conversation around card usage, and it's kind of been a long time coming. So that's all I got. Questions? Someone's got the mic. There you go.
Hello, Nicole Kasich with Sage, Intact Accountants Program. Thank you. So as someone who's working with the accountants that are potentially offering this for their clients, sometimes they see this as the cashback as potentially an independence issue. And so I noted that you can pay it back to the client, or you can keep it for yourself as a revenue stream. But do you work with the accountants so that they understand that they are not potentially in any independence or compliance situations there?
I think that's a very good point. So initially, we proposed this as just affiliate revenue. So we'll give this community, we'll give you 50 basis points to recommend the card. And overwhelmingly, the feedback we got was we have a fiduciary responsibility to our clients. And we can't be making money on this because we need to recommend the right solution, not necessarily a solution that makes us money, which is why we changed it to, if you don't have a business model where you can take this revenue stream in, then you can pass it along as a benefit of working with you to your customer. So we don't really care. This is just a value proposition we're giving to the community, and we'd love to see it go into your revenue line or your customer's cashback line. Either way, the product benefits. So that's the intention. I think we had a few hands over there, and then we'll circle back around over here.
Hi. So thank you for all the information. I'm Jin Young from BDO. So I actually have 2 questions, if that's okay.
Yep.
So one of them is that the payment options, I know you guys currently have daily and then also a monthly for the settlement.
Yep.
But I have a client who wants to push actually Expensify reports itself weekly base. And then they were hoping if there's a weekly settlement option, then that will go little
they'd
be
like
more
that
in sync.
frequency.
Yeah, so I was wondering if you have an option for that.
Yeah, not an automated weekly one. We can take that back, but we do have the option to go into a reconciliation dashboard and just settle at any time. So if they say they're approaching their company limit and they want to free up limits on the cards, or really any reason, they can just go and say settle now, and it will immediately run settlement. So till we figure out if there's enough demand to build a weekly routine option, they can always use that weekly.
I see. Perfect. And then, thank you. And then one more question. So regarding the purchase, so I actually have some clients who are doing the credit card purchase approval process. So currently they're doing it outside of Expensify. And I know like by them giving certain credit limit, that's like some sort of approval for them to use up.
Yeah.
But like for certain expenses, especially something that may go over their user credit limit for employees,
Yeah.
if they have some sort of process that they can get it through.
Like a pre-approval.
Yeah, especially like now that we have new Expensify, maybe like
Yeah.
they can put the request and then like if someone can approve right there. So I was wondering if you guys have some sort of plan on that.
Yeah, so you know how David demoed the chat experience. So every company is going to have, all the admins are going to be in an admin room, and there's going to be as many admin rooms as employees. So it's an employee and the admins have a chat. I think this will lend itself really well to that room. So if you have a certain purchase, like you talk about that purchase and ask for a limit increase, and immediately on the right-hand pane is where you can go and increase that specific employee's limit. So we'll keep it all in one place and make it conversational. And if the limit's increased, they can spend. And then if the admin wants, they can take the limit down after or leave it like up to them. Yeah, appreciate it. Over there, TJ.
Ferris Hammer with CLA. The question is with regards to, I'm right here.
Oh, that was trippy.
It's me. So with regards to virtual cards, it said admin
Yep.
created. Is that really the only use case, or are you thinking also eventually opening it up so that someone could request a virtual card and
Yes.
it'll get approved? Okay.
Yes, so basically there's 3 ways to do it, and I should have mentioned that. What exists today in the product is any employee can get a virtual card, and it just draws on their existing limit. So say you want a virtual card because you have a bunch of online purchases, and you don't want a physical card because you don't really go out and travel and spend. You don't need to get a physical card. Nobody wants another card in their wallet. You can just get a virtual card, you can use that card. Or you want both, you can have both. What's coming is the ability to issue a virtual card, either request or admin issues for you, for specific types of spend that's completely independent of the employee's limit. So it may be that one person in the IT department owns all the IT subscriptions, but they would have an IT subscription virtual card or multiple cards for the different vendors, each with their own limit. That won't interfere with their actual personal limit, which has been a much requested feature. So that's the difference there. And yes, employees can either request or admins can assign it to them, but it's purpose-specific virtual cards, if you will.
So what I heard you say also towards the end, it would be also vendor specific?
It can be. It can be vendor specific. It can be department or specific category specific, as fine-grained or not as you want it to go.
Thank you.
Hey, Anu. Peter.
Yep.
From Meridian, Cape Town. I had a couple of questions. I actually forgot the first one, but when you were talking about the cards and creating behavior, I thought there's a lot of tools that gamify things that go, you're a champion, you've submitted all your documents on time every month, and almost to incentivize the employee.
That sounds pretty cool, actually, yeah.
To say, hey, like, well done, here's an extra $10 for doing that, or a coffee, or whatever.
Absolutely. I think that's a great idea, but we would probably not build that into a corporate card. But another feature, but we haven't demoed it yet, and it's already on our new chat-based expense product, is every user has a personal wallet. And you can link up your bank accounts to that wallet, and you can either fund the wallet or transfer money out of that wallet to yourself. I think what we would do is implement something like that to just give you $10 or $100, depending on how well you did, to your personal wallet so that it doesn't interfere with the corporate funds, because we want to keep those two separate, because the reconciliations and exports will all be janky otherwise. But it's a great idea.
I remember the other one. If people are stressed about their independence, what about saying that 0.5% goes to your approved nonprofit, that your company, and that it almost just gets deposited to them directly?
If we do if you as a company want to do something with the 50 basis points worth of revenue and not call it revenue, that's entirely up to you. It's just a credit to your business bank account. You can totally donate it. I mean, you can report it however you want. But we are building it as either to you to do whatever you want, or you can pass it along to your customers. And if you choose the customer option, we will automatically credit it to the customer. So those are the two forks.
Yeah, I'm always going at another fork of a nonprofit.
We do have a Expensify org nonprofit arm, and there, if you wanted to donate it, yeah, you could do that. Anyone
Worth
else?
also mentioning that 10%, I was going to say 10% of the interchange revenue does
That's true.
currently go to expensify.org at the moment as well.
And we do have specific funds that we work with, and there's specific causes. And there is a way for you to donate already. So yeah, we could route that.
G'day, Clayton Oates from Down Under. Just two quick questions. One is a lot of small businesses are attracted to certain cards because of airline miles,
Sure.
for example. I know the 2.5% might offset that a bit, but there's just this headspace that I need to get my miles. So I'm curious about that. And the other piece was also around, we're in this age of digitisation and connectivity, partly.
Yeah.
The need to actually have a physical receipt or even get a receipt printed and then scanned or taken a photo or whatever, it feels as though we're moving some way down the path to not even needing that. And there are companies, on an Australian company called Slip that's doing this, acting as a sort of gateway in the background, connecting POS and payments. Now, there's a lot of disconnect between POS and payments at the moment, but Square's another great example, I suppose, where that is connected. So the flow of the underlying source document goes with the payment transaction. Are you seeing accelerated evolution of that, and or even whether there's an opportunity for Expensify to get involved in fast-tracking that and making that more connected around the world?
Yeah, I love that question because, I mean, the subject seems to be very polarizing, the receipt requirement subject. I say that because the IRS rules, especially in the US, are that if it is for a business purpose, then you only need an itemized receipt for certain types of spend. And other than that, you really just need date, merchant, amount, and what's the business purpose. And the business purpose can easily be accomplished with a description. So we actually do e-receipts for 99% of spend because we, like I said, have all this rich metadata on the transaction. So we actually put all that on an e-receipt and you don't have to scan a receipt. But customers use the itemized receipt not just for compliance, but a lot of the time for spend control. So they want to know if you went to a restaurant, like how much and what, and were you within, sort of company rules. And so when we've made it e-receipts for everybody, there's been a little bit of like, no, we didn't want that. We want itemized receipts. So we actually changed our physical receipt requirement to itemized required or not, so that it's a little bit clearer. So if you want an itemized receipt for anything over $7,500, you can set it up. We can add an e-receipt, but we won't because you as a company are requiring an itemized receipt, which we can't get. But if you don't care about that, and a lot of companies, especially smaller businesses, don't have someone sitting there reading everybody's receipts. So they opt to be like, give us all e-receipts. We don't want our employees doing more work if they can do less, and we can do that too.
Thank you. Actually, hearing his question remind me of one of my clients' questions. So, despite of how easy Expensify can be, I have a question like he's struggling like getting all the receipts and having people to submit. So he was actually trying to his policy is to cut off like their credit card after certain days that people don't submit. But then also he has like 100 employees, so one person cannot do all that. So he was wondering if Expensify has a way to like set something like after 90 days not submitting their expenses, then it will freeze for a while, all that features.
So on reimbursables, we already do that. You can say like basically what's the maximum age, I believe is like in the expense configuration, what's the maximum age of the transaction you want to accept. And a lot of people said 90 days. With the card, though, it accomplishes exactly what he wants to do. Because say you have a $5,000 limit and you're just not scanning receipts and that's the company policy, you're not submitting your expenses. Your $5,000 of unapproved, unsubmitted spend on the card, your card's going to cut off. And the only way to get your card to work again is to submit them and get them approved, which is what you're describing is a situation a lot of admins and accountants reported, which is why we built it like that. We didn't want to do static limits because at the end of the month, if you release the limit, they still haven't submitted, you still haven't approved it, you still have a problem, but they're still spending, like this is a bad scenario. So we made it all sort of link up with the policy and link up with approvals. So this thing works seamlessly and kind of does the admin approver's job for them by incentivizing good behavior. Two there.
Hi, Scott from SFA Financial.
Good to meet you.
There might be a whole day devoted to this, but are you going to talk about the CPA card?
So everything I was saying, I should have called it CPA card, good point. Everything I was saying is exclusive to the approved community, like the 50 basis points that you can do as you please with, the ability to plan payments, and then all the perks that already exist on the CPA card are exclusive to the accountant community. And we want to keep making the card, but also the subscription value proposition very attractive to you guys. Because like I said, first of all, you bring us a lot of clients, so it's just a cheaper acquisition channel for us, if you will. But also, these are typically companies that care about their expense processes. They care about setting it up correctly. And then as they grow, they care about evolving their setup, which is a big issue because sometimes a customer comes to us when they're 20 employees strong. They set up, but they never look back, but they keep growing. And now they have 100, 200 employees, but they didn't really engage with us to sort of evolve their setup. And then they end up churning, saying Expensify doesn't scale with them. But no, we could have helped you scale your setup, but we never got that opportunity. This doesn't happen with the approved community because you're proactively working with them all the time to gauge where their setup needs to go and are they actually properly working through the required processes. So we want to make every aspect of the product richer for you, so we're incentivized to work together.
I think it might be worth wrapping up the questions here so we've got enough time for Millie and Daniel's session. If you do have any more questions, please just share them in New Expensify. Sorry.
I should put the QR
Yeah,
code
let's
back
put
on.
the QR code back up.
There you go.
If you just scan that, you'll be taken to the room in New Expensify and you can keep sharing your questions and we can keep the collaboration going with Anu way after the session ends.
Thank you so much, everyone. Looking forward to talking to you guys more.